Welcome back to Aliens and Angels podcast. This is our weekly live Q&A community chat, and today I'm pleased to bring you another interesting topic for discussion, ET and astral contact. I have a special guest coming on the show today, Don Rogers from March 4th Productions. So have you ever considered that ET astral contact is possible even when we're using CE5 protocols? According to my own experiences and those of other ET contactees, we can contact ET interdimensionally, and this is also known as astral projection and transdimensional travel. Join our weekly discussion and become part of the conversation. Please post your questions and your comments during this live chat. And you are welcome to join our Facebook group called Aliens and Angels. All of the links are featured below in the description. Check me out, subscribe to my channels, leave me a comment, like my videos, and share my content with your friends. So very excited to bring on our guest today, Don Rogers. Hi, Don. How you doing?
Hi, Karen. I'm great. Thanks for having me on. I think this is going to be a fun discussion.
Yeah, I think it is too. I recently had on my other show, the Quantum Guide show, Jimmy Blanchette, and he has a big antenna, and he digitizes requests and sends it out on his antenna, and he bounces a signal off the moon and sometimes off the sun to contact ET. But he tells me and other people all the time, he says that anybody can contact ET just by meditating. It's the easiest way, and we can put in our request for contact. And so I thought I would ask you, Don, since you've had a lot of contact, not just in this timeline, but possibly other timelines. And yours is interdimensional, as is my ET contact. And I wondered if you want to just start off by telling people a little bit about how that started for you. And I know in the beginning it's kind of confusing. What the hell's going on? It seems to be happening in the future. Anyway, I just wonder if you want to talk a little bit to the audience about your experiences.
One of the ones that most comes to mind when it's in regards to this subject is one that I recount. It was kind of astral contact and in real life contact. I was actually going to pick up Canadian Spinja the one day because I had the vehicle and she was at work. And I drove past a section of road that I do all the time. And we're in the flatlands of Alberta. There's not much to look at and there's not much around. Just as I was driving in the driver's side, just around where my window would be, I saw a chrome glint. And the thing that always struck me as funny about this is you would think your reaction would be, what's that? And I remember thinking the last thing before I get to the next part, I didn't think, what's that? I went, not again. And then there was a disruption and I was about 2 minutes up the road and all of a sudden at my turn that should have been about 2 or 3 miles down the road. Like I had to startle myself and make my turn because I looked at the thing, thought, not again, and then I was suddenly at my turn. So my day just proceeded on. I was kind of seeing stars for a minute after I made my way down the road, but that was fine. I went and picked up my now wife, Canadian Spinja, and we carried on about her day. And we were on our way back, and I just started feeling angry and irritable. Like everything she was saying was kind of a shot at me, or at least that's the way I was taking it. and the dog looked at me wrong, and I told it to F off, and like the cat smelled bad, and like our son probably did something, but he deserved to be yelled at too. And this went on for like 2 days, and I just was not myself. I was itchy in my own human suit. Like it was just, I was angry for no reason. I'm like, what the hell is going on? This needs to stop. And I kind of did a meditation before I went to sleep. And this is where it gets astral. The end of that meditation saw me wake up on a ship with some of our blue round-headed friends, the Arcturians, and they were explaining that they had messed up by 2 minutes. And that's why I had been so physically uncomfortable, is they missed my energy marker by about 2 minutes and put me back wrong. And I was literally uncomfortable in my biological form, and it was coming out as like me lashing out. And of course, I
Mm-hmm.
had something to say to them. I was like, do you know what you just did in that reality? Like, that might be a couple of minutes to you, but that was 2 days of hell for my human family. Like, do you know what you just did? And they were apologetic,
Mm-hmm.
and they reset it. And they actually allowed me to keep the memory so I could explain it to Spinja and our son. Like, I am so sorry. I was literally out of balance with myself. Right.
Yeah,
So that
out of
would be,
sync.
yeah. And yeah, like I 100% believe that there is astral communication, because as you and I have discussed, like your consciousness exists far beyond this body in different time states, dimensions, and realities at all times. And I think that we do have the ability to slide in and out of those. And that's where you will have most of your ET contact, because it's just easier to not take this with us, right? Because it
Yeah.
gets banged up and not supposed to travel through space, and it's just easier to go somewhere else.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I agree. I agree. So the other thing is, I'm just going to bring up is coming up this Wednesday at noon Pacific, 1 o'clock Mountain Time, or 3 p.m. Eastern Time on the Quantum Guide Show. We're going to go live with a panel, and Don Rogers and Canadian Spinja are two of the people, along with Jennifer Helkame and Stephen from BG Cast. And we're going to be having our third and final panel on simulation theory, because this all kind of ties in with simulation, and it also explains a lot. So I want to recommend to the viewers and the listeners that you join us on Wednesday for this really fascinating topic and discussion. And so, Don, then was that before or after you started having dreams of intergalactic warfare?
That was before, but just 1 second. Yes, Ben.
No, I just we can talk about it later.
Okay. No, I thought she had something prevalent. Sorry. But no,
Okay.
the SFP thing happened in October, September of last year. I always get the dates. I'm horrible with time, so I openly admit sometimes when it was October. Sometimes when I tell a story, I can't get my dates right. It could be 3 months ago, and it was actually 3 years ago. Who knows? But what had happened was the succession, and Spin and I were actually just recently discussing. I talk about the fact that for 9 days I had horrific nightmares, and it was of intergalactic warfare with reptilian creatures that stood at least 14 feet tall. And like I was dying dozens and dozens. Like I think I remember one night was like 40 something times that I experienced death. And it was this ongoing protection of a future version of Earth. But what Spin and I recently just recovered out of our own memories is there was about a 6 to 8 month period where it was dangerous to sleep next to me, right?
Mm-hmm.
She couldn't get within like 6 inches of me, much less touch me, because I was waking up in battle mode. Like I was like, I will wake up swinging because I was still there. Because like, if you're woken up suddenly in this reality from a transdimensional experience, there's a phase shift. There's a
Yeah.
settling that you have to have. And if you're immediately jerked out of that and it's not like a peaceful waking from sleep, it's abrupt and it's traumatic, and you come out angry. because you don't know where you are. You don't know who you are. There's
Yeah.
a tenth of a second when I'm jolted out of a sleep where I have to figure out which one I am.
Mm-hmm.
And like this is ongoing. Spin and I have actually been discussing, like, I don't so much think I even dream anymore as have experiences in my other stages of consciousness, because I literally shut off here and wake up somewhere else.
Yeah.
My consciousness never rests. And what really pushed that for me is, like, I remember dreaming, and when I used to dream, it was almost like I was observing. But now when I go to sleep, this body goes to sleep, I wake up somewhere else as first person, right? I'm always the main character, even though I'm not me. It's not like
Mm-hmm.
I'm watching anymore. It's always a different experience of myself, like my
Yep.
consciousness in a different reality.
Yeah, I have that too. So the similarities between my experiences and yours are very interesting. So, for instance, while I am doing transdimensional travel, for lack of a better word, it's a very physical experience. It's not like an observer watching. Now, a lot of people, when they talk about astral projection, it's very much like being an observer who is watching or seeing other things. And that's why I think it's actually part of the same package as remote viewing. Transdimensional is a little different. I think it's the next step after remote viewing and just spontaneous perceiving or knowing, and after actual astral projection, because it takes on a very physical, we go into another mode of being. And for me, it was very crazy making in the beginning, because I thought I was losing my mind, because sometimes I didn't know whether I was here or whether I was there, whether I was myself or whether I was someone else. Like, it sounds like mental illness, but it's not. In fact, I've never been more together mentally and emotionally in my whole life as since I started having these experiences. But I had to sort that out. And then the other thing is there's a time differential. So is it the past? Is it the present? Is it the future? Is it another universe? Is it um, is it another timeline of this universe? Like, I don't have all the answers. I just have my experiences. And so that's sort of how it is for me. And I understand it's like that for you too, Don, right?
Yeah, and again, I'll paraphrase our forbidden knowledge leader, Chris. I don't know shit, right? But my understanding, this just kind of came to me as we were talking. That's why I wrote it down. I think to understand it, remote viewing is a stage of the subconscious, and I think transdimensional experiences, you're actually within your energetic body, and that's why it's more of a tactile sensation, right? You're actually taking some of your energetic form, where when you're astral traveling or remote viewing, you're just using your mind's ability to peek out of here. You're not actually going, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're looking out of yourself when you're remote viewing or astral traveling. You're actually leaving when it's transdimensional. You're taking your energy to go experience that new um dimen- uh life experience. Sorry, I kind of got stuck for words there at the end. I hope you get what I
That's
mean.
okay. Oh, it's all good. It's all good. Well, that's the other thing. Putting into words and creating concepts that are understandable by the viewers and the listeners is not always easy. We're not even given validation that this is a real thing, number one. It's only by the fact that we're living in 2024 we can even talk about these things without our relatives carting us off literally to mental hospitals. We've never been given language for a lot of it. You and I both do a lot of research, and that's where we're able to understand some of these concepts in scientific terms. but it's very interesting learning to downstep that information. Now, previously, there's been many, many, many books written throughout history. And I think that some of the authors lived in a time and age where they had to say that it was fiction, just in order to save themselves. Often there were female writers who had to use male names, pseudonyms, in order to get published. So, in a very short period of time, all of us, our minds have been opened to concepts and situations that some humans will never really be able to accept, and others are going, "Oh my God, I've had some of that happen to me too." I think it's a lot more common than what we're told, and I also think it's a very powerful tool. So, getting back to contacting ET, my experiences happened over a 3-month period of time, for those of you who haven't heard my experience. And it happened while I was sleeping at night. So at first I thought I was dreaming, but there was a time differential. So the first time I went, I was gone for about 2 weeks. And in my experience, there was eating, there was sleeping, there was going to the bathroom, there was all kinds of really physical experiences. But I was told, because I was very concerned about being there, I was very concerned because I had a cat at home that needed care, and nobody would know that I was gone. And I have no recollection of being picked up physically by a ship. It all happened transdimensionally. And I was assured that when I was ready to go home, I would wake up and it would be the next morning. And then it happened every night for a 3-month period of time, and then it abruptly stopped. And I'm presently working on my book explaining all about it. I would like to get that finished soon. But anyway, that's sort of how it went down for me. So, according to many people, through meditation, which is relaxing the mind, slipping into another state of consciousness, we can actually exit the simulation and sort of click out and click into a place that's outside of time and space. And I think that our extraterrestrial brothers and sisters and cousins are well familiar with that place, and it's a good place for us to join up and meet. Don, what do you have to say about all that?
Well, with the time dilation, I definitely experienced that when I had my experience when I was 15 years old. Um, I I'll just wrap it up really quickly because I went to school for 5 years in one night, and something didn't clear out right because I never stopped like feeling that I had aged 5 years. I didn't have full recall of the memories at the time of what had just happened, but I just woke up one day and felt like I was 21, like 20 years old. I I'm like, I don't need parents. I don't need this shit. I'm all done now. And it was literally, I had been in school somewhere else for 5 years and then was put right back in my body, but they missed something because when I
Mm-hmm.
woke up, I still felt older. Right? I didn't remember everything, but I still felt like I was much older than I was the night before. And it was this very
Yeah,
bizarre
yeah,
sensation of where did
yeah.
the last 5 years? Yeah.
Our consciousness remembers it all as one succinct timeline. So our regular three-dimensional life here and the time we're away get sort of stitched in. And we do feel older. I just want to put up a comment here by Jason H. He says, when astral projection, do you travel from your original spot, or can you just appear somewhere right away? So I'm guessing you just appear right away. But what do you think, Don?
Well, when I went on Robert Khalil's Typical Skeptic, when I first started figuring out how all of this stuff works, I did a really deep meditation. I was trying to astral project, and I ended up falling asleep. And what ended up happening is I just kept kind of blinking into the places that I wanted to see. And when I woke
Mm-hmm.
up, I knew where they all were. right? Because I had been there, I'd been there, I'd been there, I'd been there, I'd been there, right? What I had asked is like, okay, I need to see why this is even useful. Show me some military bases. And I literally woke up the next day and pulled out Google Maps, and I'm
Yes,
like, there's one, there's one, there's one, there's one, because I had just been there the night before. So no, it was literally like it was just flashes in my sleep of these locations. I would look around, know where I was, get an idea of it geographically, and on to the next one. And that was
I
my
remember
biggest
that.
that was my
I remember
biggest
that
experience.
show.
Yeah,
Sorry, I
it
won't keep
it
interrupting you.
no, it was an exciting experience, and it was bizarre because I actually ended it with divulging the location of a Space Force base and being able to pull up a website that I shouldn't have known where to find. I didn't dare enter it because it was for Space Force employees, but it was just I woke up and knew stuff from World War II right up to Space Force because I asked for a reason why I was able to do this. Right. So it is more of a sleeping, you're not physically there and you just kind of wake up somewhere. That's
Hmm.
my best
I
explanation.
agree. I agree. It's the same for me. So, for instance, one time um, I went to sleep, and I know the difference between dreaming and transdimensional experiences. With dreaming, they don't, there's no logical sequence of events. Things are kind of overlapping. They don't make a lot of sense. There's no continuity to what's going on. The experiences are very fleeting. But with transdimensional, no, they're very real, and I'm fully conscious, absolutely fully conscious. So one time I just appeared in a sports car, a white sports car with the roof down. I'm driving along, and I'm looked down, and I'm wearing white jeans. And I look in the rear view mirror, and I'm actually a guy. So, like, I have no idea how all of this works. And I was on my way to my apartment. I had my keys. I was looking for the room number. Like, it was really, really bizarre. Another time I was at a restaurant. I was a woman. I was aware that I was a woman. I was on actually a blind date. I went to the washroom. I looked in the mirror to check my hair, and I was a woman of color, and I had this dark, ringlety, curly hair. And I was quite surprised. I kind of went, wow, okay. And I'm just going to go with the flow. I have no idea what the script is or what's going to happen next. And I think this is very much tied into what's very well documented through the Monroe Institute. And Don, maybe you want to talk a little bit about how there is government websites that verify this information. We are perfectly capable of clicking out of the simulation or out of the 3D reality and clicking into a place where there is no time and space. And I don't know exactly how it works, but it's sure interesting. I just want to check this one comment by Jason before we move on, before I turn it over to you, Don. He says, that's kind of how I assumed it would be, although it would be cool to Superman to a location. Well, I agree. I think once we get a better control over what's happening, first it starts with recognizing we're not crazy and we're not dreaming. And then when we give ourselves over to our being conscious during these experiences, then I think that we do have more control over the scenario. I'm looking for ways to become conscious while I'm transdimensional, and somehow seeing if I can bring back something to validate that I was there, because so far I've not been able to physically transport a stone or a flower or anything to bring it back. Anyway, I'll turn it over to you, Don.
Um, Before we get ahead, one of the ones that I wanted to share as well is I've actually had one, and it's funny because I'll get there. I was myself, but it was in a reality where Spinja and I were already on the farm, right? So I don't know if this is ahead, behind, beside where this took place, but I was there for several weeks. And then I woke up back here and I was like, oh, what the hell? Like, no, I was there. I like that one. I want to be there. And it was so real. Like, we were there. We had our house. We had everything we wanted. We were living the life that we've talked to you about and talked about on shows, we were already there. And I was doing the physical work. I had splinters in my hands. My hands were sore for working with power. Like I was experiencing it. My back hurt. It, and then I woke up back here and I was like, what the hell? That's not, no, I want to go back. Like, that's not okay. So, like, I've actually had experiences of my own life just in different versions of it.
Yeah.
Like,
So
that was one
that
of the
even
most.
ties. So
Yeah,
I was going to say
go
that
ahead.
also ties into the many worlds theory where we can switch places. You know what I mean? It's already happened there. It's coming in the future here. It's hard to say. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut
Yeah.
you off, Don.
No, it actually does tie in. And I'm sorry, I got wiped. Where did you want to go after this? Because I
Oh, I
completely got.
wanted you to bring out that what we're talking about and
Oh,
is found on the website for the Monroe Institute, but there's also government websites that actually address this very, very same thing, proving that it's a real thing. This is not just shit we're pulling out of our butts.
yeah. No, you can actually go and they're already following you, so you may as well just do it. You can actually go onto the CIA reading room and pull up anything you want. They actually have a version of a Google search right in the reading room. And a lot of the times it comes as a download. Sometimes it's blacked out stuff, and other times it's all of the stuff. But astral projection, holographic matrix, all of these things are covered in CIA class now declassified files, and they're open for your reading, but they don't really go out and shout it from the rooftops that any Tom, Dick, and Harry can go read everything that they've been investigating since the 50s. But yeah, you can just go onto the CIA reading room and look up everything about astral projection. Oh, they even have devices and patents and all of this stuff that they've been attempting. It's actually
Mhm.
led me down to my explanation of the holographic matrix was their investigation of being able to code data onto DNA. And I was like, well, why? Well, because we're the projectors. Every one of our bodies can store up 13.5 billion years worth of data. That's why, right? Because that's how old
Mhm.
the universe is. This is all
Mhm.
us, right? So no, you can find wonderful information that'll lead you down amazing rabbit holes. And yeah, it's literally their own library. It's a reading room, and it's just CIA reading room. You can look up everything you want about any rabbit hole conspiracy, all of the programs, Project High Jump, Project Paperclip, everything is there.
Yeah, it's all there. Absolutely. Thank you. So Marshall Martin says, exactly. I traveled to a different dimension once and was a type of humanoid species, but different looking when I looked in the mirror. Absolutely. Absolutely. It happens all the time. Jason H says, just saw a cover page of their research into the pyramids. Yeah, yeah, there is a lot of really cool stuff that you can find if you do a research. Another thing I wanted to say is the show The Matrix, at least the first one. I don't know about the last one, which was made me a little uncomfortable, but I think it's a documentary. I really, really do. And it's not fun to once you leave your socialized programming and you become aware of what's really going on in the world. I won't get too much into conspiracy here, but it's very uncomfortable. Even your foods are, you can't eat the way you used to eat. Everything is changes and everything is different, especially during the adjustment period. But much the way Neo gets to that point where he says he takes off like Superman because he's no longer bound by the rules that are stopping him from doing all these amazing things. And Dawn, you and I were talking about the flea circus. You want to talk about the flea circus? This is a real thing. You can also research this. This is absolutely real. It was really popular in the early 1900s, and how they trained the fleas to be in these flea circuses, because it's the same thing. We're talking about the very same thing, except it's
Yeah.
us that have been programmed, rather than the fleas.
Yeah. So the basic principle is if you can catch or hatch a certain amount of fleas in a jar and you put a lid on that jar and you leave those fleas in there, I think it's 2 to 3 weeks, the fleas will actually become accustomed to only jumping so high. They become trained. They have a perceived construct of like, this is their reality. This is all they can ever do. They can only bounce the side. This is the most success they're ever going to get out of life. Now, if you take that jar and flip it upside down after a couple of weeks and just leave the fleas without the jar and the lid, they'll only jump that high. They will not jump out of the form of the jar because they've been
Mhm.
programmed by a perceived construct, right? It's not even there. We don't have to do it this way. You don't have to just jump up and down. You can look to the left, you can look to the right, you can even go sideways if you want to fly away, right? You can get out of the jar, you can get out of the flea circus because it's all just training, right? Spin and I are literally talking about changing the paradigm of her employment. And at first, what she perceived is self pity because she doesn't want to go into a city anymore, actually turns out to be more beneficial for us, her employers, and everybody involved. So we're perceived to think, oh, I only want out because I feel bad about this. No, no. Getting out can actually make everybody's life better because you can show them what can be done outside of the construct. And it's exactly what Spin's attempting to do. So, no,
Mhm.
it's a real world concept that affects everybody. You have to be able to look outside of your own little flea circus.
Absolutely. And so I just further to the training of the fleas, some of them were kept in little boxes so they couldn't stray to the left more than a certain distance, or they couldn't stray to the right more than a certain distance. And once they were trained, then they would glue little harnesses to them, and they would do these little flea circuses, and you'd pay a nickel and you'd get to go in and see these trained fleas. Well, the funny thing about it, well, not funny, ha ha, but the funny thing about it is the next generation of fleas were also programmed, and the next generation, the grandchildren, were also programmed. So that's happened to us. And we've been taught we can only do this, that, and the next thing. And there's nobody telling us, no, bullshit. We can do all kinds of amazing things. And that's why Dawn and I have our channels and do our shows, and Canadian Spinja and many other people. We're telling people, no, we're capable of doing so much more than we ever dreamed possible. But we have to overcome learned helplessness, and we have to overcome these barriers. And so this is also true for contacting ET. I just want to take a couple comments. Jason H says, in regard to how he saw um, a cover page with the research into the pyramids, and he always wanted to visit one. And then he also says, I know you can train a bee to protect you. Oh, absolutely. So, my advice to Jason H is to practice going there interdimensionally, astrally. Just start having the desire to go there and then spending time away from distractions where you can relax your mind and your body and let your soul transport you there. I think that's the quickest way of doing it. Don, what were you going to say?
Just for him, one of the ways I actually first set off the ability to astral travel and whatever it was, Chris Clark Cagley's pineal meditation and Wim Hof breathing, and it's a DMT release, Wim Hof breathing with pineal meditation, kicks it off just as well as magic mushrooms. Right, you can get things going if you're doing it right. So that's just my personal advice.
Oh, Jason says, I meant visit a flea circus, but pyramids would be cool too. Yeah, and like I said, all you have to do is Google or go into the YouTube search and do a flea circus, and it'll show you several clips. They're incredibly cool, and it seems impossible, but not that hard to do. And like I said, that's happened to us. So thank you, Dawn, for sharing ways that we can put ourselves into an altered state without having to do psychedelics. Now, I just want to take a minute into, oh, Jason says, definitely going to look into that breathing method. Yeah, I recommend it. I want to take just a minute and do a short promotion. It's only 2 minutes long, and then we'll come right back to the program and we'll talk more about contacting ET through astral projection. Hi, guys. Break time for a short message. YouTube will not monetize me, so if you enjoy my content and want to support my efforts, help me to cover my expenses by visiting my shop to buy yourself a beautiful orgone generator. Zendome's Orgonite are my unique brand, and they are ethically sourced, handmade, and double charged for maximum effect. They are only available through my website, www.KarenHoltonHealthCoach.com. Many people are finding comfort with Zendome's orgone generators, commonly called Orgonite. They are a simple compound which balance ambient energy by converting negative energy and EMF into positive healing energy with many easily confirmed health benefits. They are a simple compound with alchemic and energetic properties. These devices function as self-driven, continuously operating, highly efficient, negative to positive energy transmutation factories. They help diminish the harmful effects of electromagnetic frequency radiation by attracting and converting negative energies, retuning them into new and more healthful sound and light wave patterns. And they help to purify the atmosphere and accelerate plant growth. They also help stimulate positive mood and are a natural remedy for poor sleep patterns. When Orgonite is within range of any corded or wireless electronic device, it will efficiently and continuously transform that energy into orgone as it is being transmitted. This essentially creates orgone energy transmitters out of any and all emitters of harmful negative energy. You can use these devices for focusing the mind, healing, meditation, and for spiritual growth. Zendome's Orgonite are my unique brand of orgone generators, and they are only available through my website. Don't be fooled by imitations. Check out my website to see my latest selection at www.KarenHoltonHealthCoach.com. That's KarenHolton healthcoach.com. Check them out today. Now, let's get back to the show. And we're back. I want to mention that orgone generators actually can be very helpful in when you're practicing meditation and when you're practicing astral projection because of the energy that they produce. And I want to thank those of you who have recently bought orgone generators from me. I'm not a rich woman, and as my promotion said, YouTube will not monetize me. They say that my content is dangerous, which makes me laugh. But it helps me to cover my expenses when you do make purchases from my website. I also have services and other things under the shop tab. So I just want to thank everybody who helps to support my work. And short of that, you could also go to buy me a coffee. There's a link below. And, if you want to just make a donation, $5 or whatever is comfortable for you. And of course, if you're a low income person, I absolutely understand that you may not be in a position to help make a donation. But anyway, so Yeah, so I have actually quite a few orgone generators. I have one called the meditation pyramid, which I use to boost my frequency and to help me transdimensionally. But I wanted to get back to contacting ET through astral projection. Preston Dennett, who is a friend of Don's and mine, he has a book out on easy steps to astral project, and you can buy that book on Amazon, and it's quite reasonably priced. But I thought I'd take it back over to you, Don. How do you put yourself, apart from when you're sleeping, how do you put yourself into the right state to be able to astral project or make contact?
Um, there's a couple of different techniques that I use. One of them is actually pre-recorded guided meditations on YouTube. There's a lot of I'll even shout them out. It's your Innerverse. Um, it's this lady who does these free guided hypnosis meditations, and they are a great jumping off point to being in a controlled state in your subconscious, right? Because they get you to where you're visualizing your surroundings, you're in the moment. Like, she is very talented. It's also got sub subliminal neuro editing, which actually really helps with thought stimulation because it teaches both sides of your brain to work together. So there's frequency control, and these guided meditations is one of the most effective ways I've found, because I can listen to one of those and then do my own meditation, and I'm in such a creative space from what I've just done. It just kind of pops on. Um,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
the other one is Clark Kegley's Wim Hof DMT breathing. If you can get your natural DMT flowing while meditating, you are going to have a wonderful experience and able to put yourself wherever you want to be, because you control one of the most wonderful substances known to man. You just have to figure out how to get your brain to activate it. And once you do,
Mm-hmm.
it's a much more controlled and vivid experience.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I would agree. Now, another thing that I think is important is we've all heard horror stories of people who have had negative experiences with ET. Now, that's not happened for me, but there are ways that you can fine tune your search for ET and make it much more likely you will have a positive interaction. And that is by having a grateful heart. So, having gratitude, meditating on all the things you're grateful for, because what that does is puts you in a higher frequency mode of reality. And negative experiences can only happen under low frequency situations. So, the other thing we can do is project unconditional love, and when we're reaching out, we actually have the power to say, whether it's in our mind or out loud, who we want to contact. We want to contact beings that are loving, that have the best intentions for humans. You know, we may want to project why we want to make contact, what our motives are. And we need to reach out in high frequency vibration in order to have high frequency contact. So I think that's something important too. Jason H says, thank you. I've been looking for a good meditation guide. And Marshall Martin says, I took biofeedback and meditation therapy and asked the universe to offer connection with what was beyond this existence. Absolutely. Um, Jason asks, what is biofeedback? Biofeedback usually is some kind of a machine, although you can use biokinesiology for feedback. You can use a pendulum. Um, there are ways, and it's ways of accessing the subconscious, or at least confirming that our bodies are actually operating in alignment with our desires. And one more comment. Jean-Paul Baptiste says, howdy. Howdy, Jean-Paul. Nice to see you. So, yeah, so, oh, Jason says, sorry, I'm a little bit behind. With the Rife spooky machine be considered? I don't know, it's frequencies.
Yeah.
Oh, would Rife spooky machine be considered? I don't know, it's frequencies and it's all about frequency. Don, why don't you get into a little bit about how it's all frequency?
Um, I will, but one thing before we get away from astral projection, something I want to put because it was a hard lesson for myself. You always want to put the intent that you intend to return unharmed and peaceably. This is still your form, right? Because I
Mm-hmm.
came back into this thing rough a couple of times. Like I don't even know how to explain it, but it felt like I was thrown by a grown man, like a small child, back into my body a couple of times when I was first learning to get in and out. So you absolutely want to be careful and put that, like you said, the right intent out and the right intent to return, and that this is yours. That because one, you don't want something to take it over, and two, you don't want to get thrown back into it because it is scary.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but with the entire it's all frequency thing, one of the things that I figured out is that our reality is all basically sentient ions. So, and all of these things work on frequency. So, I emit a certain frequency, and when you interact, it changes the frequency of the things that you come in contact around you, because each one of your emotions has a frequency, right? If you're vibrating at a lower frequency, you're kind of at a dull hum and you're rough to be around, and other people can sense that. But if you're even just bubbling, you don't even have to be one of those chattering lunatics. If you're in a great space, people are going to be naturally drawn to you and want to be a part of whatever it is you're experiencing. And I think that works as well with the ETs. If you're in that high vibrational, okay with myself, willing to accept my responsibilities in reality, but I'd sure like to talk to somebody else, that is a more positive space to be than I need out of here. And God, this place sucks. And please just take me away. It's less likely to happen to that person than the person who's like, gee golly, like I don't mean literally gee golly, sorry, I'm getting a little carried away. But you know what I mean? Just in that great heart vibration, all everything's lined up and warmed up, and you're in a great emotional place because that's the frequency you're putting out to your intended guest.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep,
And
I agree.
yeah,
So traveling, astral traveling with the right intention, the right boundaries, um, the right frequency makes it more likely that you will have a really positive experience. And that's what I'm hoping for all of you. If it could happen for Dawn, if it could happen for me, it can happen for you. In fact, my ET contacts have told me that there are millions of us who make contact all the time, but we don't remember because we've agreed to not remember, because we've got work to do here on Earth. We got to come back and we got to be humans on Earth in a three-dimensional reality. I believe we're working on soul evolution, and we need to achieve certain goals. That's why we're here in the first place. And that's hard to do when we have our full memories. Now, some of us, like Dawn and I, we have quite a bit of memory. There's obviously gaps. For instance, when I'm doing what I call the exopolitical work. In that case, I travel to the big ship absolutely astrally, and I'm involved in all kinds of meetings. A lot of information gets passed from me to ET and from ET back to me. And most of that I don't remember because I'm not meant to remember. Some things are a protection for us to not remember, because then no one's going to try to get it out of us. And believe me, there are forces here on Earth in the human realm who do want to access that information. Then there's other experiences where I do have recall, but that involves me traveling. I don't exactly know how, but then I get a very physical, three-dimensional experience. And a lot of that I do remember. And as I mentioned before, I'm working on my book. Let me just take a quick look at some of the comments. Jason H says, also kind of a tangent, but could you go into the silver cord I keep hearing about in Astral? Thanks. Well, my take on the silver cord is whether I'm aware of it or not, it keeps me tethered to my body, and it may be tied into our DNA. Don, what's your thoughts on that?
It's pretty well the same, and it's actually something Spinja taught me about when I started messing with this and was having my rough landing. She's like, "Are you paying attention to this?" I'm like, "What the hell is that?" And she was the one who cued me into, it's kind of like a safety harness on a roofer, right? You're always it you're gonna come back to base and you're gonna be okay, right? Because if you have that, it's almost in this reality, a lot of times we get suckered in with implied consent, but we also forget that this is a balanced system. So we have an ability to have implied intent. If I just naturally intend and say it in my own mind once that I intend to astral project safely every time I go, that's part of my silver cord. That's my safety strand. I have put my intent out for the rest of my existence in this human form that when I astral project intentionally or even unintentionally, I am attached to my silver strand and I'm coming back here safely. That's implied intent. And we're allowed to do that too. And that is a huge safety net that not a lot of people realize is is actually available to us. To every
Mm-hmm.
con that the system uses against us, there is a pro. We just have to find it because that's the stuff that's hidden from us.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I would agree
Uh,
with that too. I just wanted to highlight Jean-Paul Baptiste says it's all memories. Well, that's true, whether they're interdimensional or whether they're in the 3D, they are, they are all memories. Jason H says, oh, so the intent secures the cord. Is that what you're saying,
yes,
Don? The intention secures the cord. Yeah, I think
yes.
that's really good advice.
Um,
Yeah, I've never had
and
to do that. I didn't. Okay, go ahead, Don.
no, sorry, I was just gonna say if when you were talking about what we bring back in our understanding of things, something I think is true is that if we understood as humans everything that was going on and everything we're capable of and everything that has ever happened, we wouldn't be able to handle it. I
Yeah.
can even like even the little droplets I've had over the last year made me question my sanity a couple of times. So if somebody just yanked the curtain and went, ta-da, here's everything, a lot of us would probably go insane.
Yeah, it's too much. It's just too much,
Yeah.
and even those of us who do have our memories, we don't necessarily remember every detail because it's just too much information. Those of us who've had downloads, we experience that as well. A download is like a spontaneous knowing. But for me and for others, sometimes it's like having a packet dropped into your brain and it unfolds over time. And it's a terrific amount of information to try to process. I have a free online course called the Quantum Health Transformation Program that was given to me in a download. It took me 2 years to unpack that information. And then it took me nearly 10 years to reprocess it till I came up with the version 3.0 that I have now. Just want to say a quick hi to John P. Adventures. Hi, John. Nice to see you. Everybody, hope you go and check out his channel. He's got some wonderful, wonderful content available. And he also says, Dawn, cheers. There we go. Hi, John P. Adventures. Nice to see you. So
And
yeah, so it's a lot. Go ahead, Dawn.
I just wanted to throw in about downloads. It was funny because you actually triggered one of my most impressive ones. You asked me if I thought this was a holographic reality. I woke up the next friggin' day understanding parts of quantum physics, time dilate, like just an amazing amount of information. And it simply came from an innocent question like, hey, do you think? And the next day I understood more than I've ever learned in school. And even that's not something you can explain to most people. Like, I can't tell my sister, who's an educator, hey, Mel, I understand quantum physics now. Like, you just can't say that.
Yep. And do you find, Dawn, as I do, that when we're around kindred spirits or other people who have the same capacities and abilities, it seems to bring out our abilities even more to the fore. We have more spontaneous understanding and more, I don't know, we just make quantum leaps. Has that been your experience?
Yeah, and I actually had a podcast episode with a mutual friend, Frank Castle. We both remembered about the first 5 minutes of the show. And then we touched base the next day. I'm like, bro, I had to rewatch it. Do you remember? We ended up channeling a 90-minute episode from our higher selves, and it was just raw source information. And it basically explained spirit creator beings on an astrophysical level that I didn't understand. Like, I had to rewatch my own show to understand what I just said because it was just me
Mm-hmm.
and Frank raw information, and he was the same way. He's like, bro, do you know what we said yesterday? I'm like, no. He's like, okay, I gotta watch that again. I'm like, okay, me too. Right. But it was such an epic episode. So no, I absolutely, when there's energies pumping, you tie into somebody, it just starts going.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It is really cool. And, I gotta say, though, it ruins it for trying to visit with normal people. I'm not trying to put normal people down, but oh my God, I try to have a conversation with normal people and it's really boring sometimes. And you're trying to be polite and pay attention. You just want to go to sleep. And you get around people who have a higher vibrational frequency that can make those quantum leaps in their thinking and be honest about what they're experiencing. And oh my God, it's invigorating. It gives you energy, it doesn't suck your energy. So that's another reason why we do these lives every Sunday at noon so that we can all participate and um, get energized, instead of having our souls sucked dry by the mainstream news or whatever. Not that I ever watch it. So we're coming close to the end of the show, and I'm wondering, Dawn, do you want to put it in a nutshell, maybe 5 points that you want people to remember from the show today if they want to make astral contact with ET or CE5, which is human initiated contact?
Yeah, absolutely. Like we were saying, I think one of the main ones is having yourself in a positive vibration because you're going to attract what you're putting out. This is actually pretty scientific. Like, it's chemistry. That's the way it works. Um, you're going to get what you put out. So definitely work on your emotional vibration and what you're trying to attract and the reasons why. Be coming from a pure place. Uh, Definitely you're going to want to work on your breathing because controlling your oxygen intake actually adds more to your blood, gets it flowing, and it actually gets you in a state of biological preparation to have these experiences. Pineal activation frequencies and meditation. I actually look up pictures of electrified brains and pictures of the pineal gland because I'm a very tactile learner. If I can think of what my pineal gland looks like, I know what I'm meditating on. I know what I'm trying to break free. I know what I'm trying to clear, right? And I would say the biggest one, if you're just trying to straight up see what you can do on your own in the astral and don't want to dabble into the psychedelics is Wim Hof breathing for DMT release. It's rough to get at first, but it's worth it. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
I I woke up in
Yeah.
October of last year, actually.
Yeah, it's been a very short time, less than a year for Dawn. For me, it's been happening since about 2012, so over 10 years. So, but it's interesting because the experiences are, very, very similar in the process of how they happen for both of us. I just got a little bit of a head start. And then, to be honest with you, it wasn't until 2017 I even came out, went public, because before that I wasn't sure if I was crazy or not, because I didn't know anyone else that was talking about this stuff. It's not like it is today where you can go on YouTube and find 100 channels where they're talking about this stuff. It's become so common. uh, Jean-Paul says for him it was 2016 in Edmonton. So I'm just going to finish up with a few comments about astral projection and ET contact. And that is, be sure of your intention, be sure that you have your boundaries set up of what you will accept, what you will not accept in any realm. And um, I think it's important to have love and gratitude and really be focused on using those kind of as your spotlight to help you have the right frequency. Now, I just want to also say I have a couple of announcements before we get into where you can find Don and what he's up to. And that is that, you're very welcome, Jason. He said, thank you, Karen. Thank you, Don. Thank you for being here. We really appreciate you. So that is, we're going to have a meet and greet here in central Alberta. So those of you who are in Alberta, you may want to join us. It's going to be held on September 1st here in Red Deer, Alberta. If you're interested in coming to our meetup, this is our second meetup. Please contact Don Rogers or myself. You can contact me through my website. Shortly, Don is going to tell you where you can contact him. And just want to also say, Jean-Paul says, let's chat, Don, one of these fine days. So, yeah. So, in case you want to come to our meetup, it's going to be very simple. We're just going to barbecue in my backyard. It's not going to be a large gathering. So far, it looks like might be, if we're lucky, half a dozen of us. And we're going to have some fun. We're probably going to live stream it. And we're going to have a tinfoil hat making session. We're going to have our industrial strength tinfoil. Those of you who are at home, if you want to make your tinfoil hats, we're just doing it for fun. Loosely, the theme is our tinfoil hats for the meet and greet. So, Jean-Paul says he's in Texas. Well, maybe next year. And there's always online. But yeah, so we're going to be doing that. So please let us know if you'd like to come and join us. It should be a lot of fun. And like I said, we'll live stream it. And it'll probably start about the same time as this show, so that if you're used to tuning in now, you would be able to catch that. Don, do you have anything to say about the meet and greet, or do you have any other announcements?
No, I'm really looking forward to the meet and greet, and I think there's a couple of people around here that we've met up with that we're going to contact about showing up for it. As far as announcements, you can find all of my content on Don Rogers at March 4th Productions on YouTube, and I'm actually going to be going live in about 5 hours with Rock Castaldo about the full moon and the plasma solar storms that have been going on and the effect they have on us, and how to use it. Help it, let it help you manifest. That's what I was trying to spit out. So that'll be at 6 o'clock Mountain Time. So
Very cool, very cool. And as I mentioned earlier in the podcast, Don Rogers, Canadian Spinja, Jennifer Helkame, and Stephen Stathis from BG Cast are all going to join me Wednesday for the Quantum Guide Show. If you haven't already checked out the Quantum Guide Show, please do come over and check us out on my channels. And we are going to be doing part 3 of our group discussion about simulation theory. So any questions you might have about simulation theory or things you want to say about that, you're welcome to join us. That's Wednesday coming up on the 21st of August at noon Pacific, 1 p.m. Mountain Time, and 3 p.m. Eastern Time. We'd love to have you join us. And all the links are going to be below. Oh, I'm sorry, you're right. I said the wrong time. Okay, scratch that. Thank you for correcting me. It is at 1 o'clock Pacific on Wednesday. It is at 2 o'clock Mountain Time and 4 p.m. Eastern Time on Wednesday. Thank you for catching me. We usually do the show at 1 p.m. Mountain Time, and that's why I got screwed up. So thank you for correcting me. That's really, really important that y'all come at the right time. And of course, I'll set things up so that there's a notice on YouTube. It might already be up, and then of course it'll also be streamed to Rumble. So thank you, Jean-Paul Baptiste, for your kind comments too. Thank you, everybody who's joined us today on the show. I really appreciate you all. It's been lovely having your participation. And the Wednesday show, we don't have as much time to really get into questions and community building, but the Sunday show, Aliens and Angels, is all about building community. So you're very important to all of us, and thank you so much for joining us. Any last minute comments, Dawn, before we go to the outro?
No, just thank you everybody for watching, and go outside. It's cool out there.
Yeah, it's kind of warm in here, but we got to enjoy the end of summer. Sad, but true. Yeah. Anyway, so I'll just say goodbye, everybody, and we'll see you Wednesday, or we'll see you next week. Thanks for joining us. Thank you for joining me for the Aliens and Angels podcast. Become the change that you wish to see in the world. Subscribe to my YouTube, Rumble, and X channels at Karen Holton TV. Click the like button, leave me a comment, and share this podcast with your friends. Check out my website at www.karenholtonhealthcoach.com to see my free resources and amazing products and services. All of the links will be in the description below. As part of the Forbidden Knowledge Network, you will also find the Quantum Guide Show with Karen Holton on all audio platforms. Until next time, keep up the good work.